My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're going to be talking about the top mistakes you can make while on a move to Alaska. These are going to be mistakes that I see people make kind of on the regular, and usually they can kind of be showstoppers or at least show delayers once people make these mistakes. And really the intention of talking about these is to make sure that the move to Alaska is as enjoyable for you as possible and it's as smooth so you can actually just get up here and enjoy living up here instead of dealing with the fallout and consequences for some of these mistakes here. Before we get started, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, and without further ado, let's jump into it. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make right off the bat is not coming up here and really spending any time and actually visiting and spending time in an Airbnb before they make the decision to move up here. And the reason that I say in an Airbnb instead of a hotel is the hotel is going to give you a very touristy experience of Alaska, but it's when you know the area you're going to be going to and you go find an Airbnb and you're staying in like a home or wherever and you're really kind of living the life there for about a week or so. That's really where you start getting a sense as to whether or not this is a lifestyle that you'll be able to actually adapt to and enjoy in the area that you're wanting to. You can get a little bit in a hotel, but it gives you a lot more sense of clarity and a lot more, definitely does clear up a lot of stuff for you once you've stayed in an Airbnb, because at that point the honeymoon phase is over and you actually have the living in that area experience of being in an Airbnb. And this might seem expensive until you start comparing it to the expenses that would be incurred if you move to an area, then you realize it's not what you wanted and you have to move somewhere else. So the Airbnb, it seems expensive, and it's not nearly as expensive as having to move again. For those of you who listen to Dave Ramsey, this next one is really going to be true to you, and that is moving and not having 3 to 6 months worth of expenses already set aside. Now, I say 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside, and this is expenses for Alaska. So if you don't have as high of a cost of living as Alaska, you need to be able to plan for the 3 to 6 months of expenses for the cost of living in Alaska. And there are a bunch of tools out there you can use to help you to kind of try to make that budget. You absolutely should do that if you are considering making a move, because you can't make a good actual plan until you have a budget. How are you going to know the job you're getting is a good one in relation to the area if you don't know how much you're approximately going to be spending? And there's going to be some margin for error in there, but you should not just be stepping off into the void without zero money saved away. Because if you think, well, I have $15,000, but I'm going to need some of that for moving, it's like, well, you don't have $15,000 then. So when I say 3 to 6 months worth of savings, that's after and not including all the expenses that's going to have to go into you coming up here in the first place. So make sure that that's done, or else you're going to regret it. Bringing too much stuff to Alaska is a big mistake that I see a lot of people make. When you're looking at making the move up here, you really need to try to consolidate down as much as you possibly can. I'm not saying you give away like the family heirlooms and all that. I am saying that anything that you could take to Goodwill that you're not going to miss, that you forgot you even had, you could probably get away with just giving that away or taking it to Goodwill and be just fine. And it's going to save you a lot of headache, a lot of heartache down the road, let me tell you, because moving that stuff into Alaska, yes, logistically it's a challenge, but it actually becomes more logistically a challenge and more expensive if you're using a moving company moving it out of Alaska. So when you're looking at stuff, think to yourself, okay, not only what am I willing to take across the country with me, but also what would I be willing to take with me again in the event that I had to move out of Alaska for some unforeseen reason. And if you're not willing to do that, you might consider finding a new home for whatever item it is that you're looking at. Now, this next one, I'm going to try to make this point without trying to make it sound like over dramatized or anything, but Alaska as a whole really is kind of a small town. And if you're coming in and you're making enemies and you're creating a bad reputation for yourself, that reputation goes a long way and it sticks with you for a long time. So just when you're making the move up here, mind your P's and Q's, like be a good human being, and it's going to get you a long ways. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened with some of you, but some people thought from a young age that they would get their way if they were just as mean and nasty as possible and thought that would help them. I don't know where that works, but I can tell you for sure it doesn't work very well up here. And once their reputation sets in, it can be pretty hard to get rid of. So yes, be kind, be considerate, and people understand it's stressful, so they're going to be there trying to help you as best they can. But if you're having a bad day or getting frustrated, don't take it out on someone up here because, like I said, small town, people remember. Let's take a break here real quick. For those of you who've been watching for a little bit, I have a podcast. More importantly, though, I also have a meetup group. For those of you who have recently moved to Alaska, this meetup group meets once a month, and we go do some really basic stuff where we'll go, hiking, berry picking, bonfires, stuff like that. Just to kind of give you an opportunity to get out and meet other people like yourself who've recently moved up here. If you're considering making that move, then feel free to jump down below, get into the description, go to the Facebook group and join the group so you can kind of get a sense for some of the stuff that we do. Now, let's go and finish today's video. One of the biggest mistakes I can see from people is them not willing to allow their perceptions of Alaska be challenged. And what I mean by this is people will come in with their preconceptions of Alaska, like, oh, everyone's going to live off grid and it's a super wholesome place. And it's going to be like the little house on the prairie. There's going to be zero crime. And they really just build it up in their minds to be this complete utopia. And that's just not the reality. It's Alaska, like any other state, is built up of, I guess for in the grand scheme of things in our case, towns and then like maybe some mid-sized cities are going to be kind of the norm. Luckily, we do have some great scenery with our towns and cities, so that's really nice. But by and large, you're going to have a lot of the same issues in these places that you would in other places. Maybe not as much. Obviously there's going to be some variations, but you're going to have the basics. You're going to have differences in the community. You're going to have a lot of local issues people get really fired up and passionate about. And a lot of the things about living with people are going to be about the same. It's just you have better scenery up here. Now, I will also say it's also a mistake on the reverse, though, having a negative perception of Alaska and refusing to allow that perception to be challenged. Being able to go there and go, okay, well, I guess it's really not as bad as a lot of these headlines make it sound like. A lot of these amateur statisticians that are out here trying to cook the data in just such a way to make it sound like it's complete Gotham up here. And that's not the reality. Oh, how about that? I guess it is kind of concentrated more or less in these little areas, and the state has a super small population, and that does make a big impact. So you can see that your perceptions can get changed. So just come in with an open mind and just give the state some grace for it to not be the complete utopia or the complete godless Gotham that you might think it is. Believe it or not, moving up around the June to August timeframe might not be the best case for everybody. And the reason for that is if you move up during the summer months, what that does is that really locks up everything you can do for that first summer is just focused on the moving, and it's locked up on that. Some of you move up during the spring or the winter time, and yes, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, why would you ever do that? But the big advantage of doing that is once you're moved in, it's done. And once the snow thaws and you can actually get out and do stuff, you get to actually enjoy your first summer and get out and do stuff instead of having to worry about the movers, getting the electric set up, getting the Wi-Fi set up and all that other stuff. You get to just go have fun. So that's one of the big advantages. There's no real right or wrong way to do it. I just think it's definitely not a bad idea to already be settled in and ready to go for the first summer that comes around. Now, this next one, I really don't think this is going to be too big of an issue for a lot of people. If you're watching this channel, you're probably pretty conscientious, kind of understand yourself and the environment up here, but some people come up here and they don't really seem to have a good idea for the lifestyle that they want to live. And there's no real clear vision. They're just like, oh, pretty, mountains, I'm going to go stay here. And it's like they get here and they never leave the apartment and they, become miserable. And it's like, well, it's not Alaska's fault. It's just you didn't have an idea for the lifestyle, and none of the lifestyles that are available up here really fit with what you were wanting to do. So yeah, have an idea for what kind of lifestyle it is you're going to have when you're coming up here. If you're watching this video, really this point is really going to be for you, and that is trying to plan too much. Okay, so there's going to be a certain element where you're just going to do everything you possibly can to get everything right. And it's really impossible to plan for every single contingency. So you have to go in there with some kind of an idea for what it is that you want to do, some kind of structure, some kind of sequential steps that you'll be able to go and do to accomplish what it is that you're wanting to do, because it's a logistical hurdle being able to move all the way to Alaska. And I get that, and we want to make sure that you can do that, and you need to give yourself some structure to do that. And you need to just understand that despite the best plans, there's going to be some things that are going to come up you didn't plan for, some curveballs that are going to throw everything to the wind. And you need to just kind of be relaxed as best you can and be able to just kind of lean into the experience and try not to stress too much, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Speaking of structure, I actually did create more or less a step-by-step guide to help people as they're trying to decide how to move up here to Alaska. And it really does go over the different elements of moving up here, like the logistics, the employment, the housing, the schools, all this stuff. Have kind of a step-by-step process and PDF file that's going to help you to really stay organized and on task as you're making the move up here. So do be watching for that in the near future. And in the meantime, I sure hope you've enjoyed this. If you have anything else that you want to add to this, any other challenges or any other mistakes people make as they're moving up here, do make sure you post those in the comments section down below to share with those who are considering making the move up here. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.